going on, everybody? This is your man, Big Stu, Scott Steward, or Professor Steward, depending on how you know me. And we are back for another episode of Dope People. And I cannot make this stuff up. Every single episode just gets better and better. I have been trying to get today's guest on here for almost a year. And she is very elusive, very busy. And we are glad to have her here today. We want to welcome to the show today the one, the only Miss Jamila Sams. Welcome to Dope People, Miss Sams. Welcome to
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be in community with you as a dope person. So thank you for having me.
Flattery gets you everywhere. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hey, listen, you all. Jamila Sams is the founder and CEO of We Do It for the Culture, a culturally responsive, social emotional learning curriculum rooted in the elements of hip hop for grades 6 through 12. Jamila is a self-proclaimed hip hop head and educator with more than 20 years of experience working with youth of all ages and backgrounds. Her areas of expertise include educational leadership, youth development, nonprofit management, and strategic partnerships and development. Again, welcome, Ms. Jamila.
What's up, Scott Steward, Professor Stewart? I think I've known you in all those capacities. Maybe, well, you're always, in the persona of a professor. Every time I see you, you're always educating and uplifting. So I'll say I know you in all the different names that you give yourself.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't think you've really met Big Stu yet. I mean, you've maybe seen some semblances of Big Stu, but you don't know Big Stu like that.
I don't know Big Stu. All right.
I had to introduce you to Big Stu one day. It'll happen. It'll happen. Okay. So look, the bio stuff is cute, right? I mean, it's dope. It is what it is, but it doesn't really tell the audience who you are. I mean, I know you through the OSG connection. I think it's been about a year-ish, a little over, maybe a little over a year, close to a year or so that I've been engaging with you. I saw you in New York at Columbia University. You came to Chicago, and then we met, and you're doing some amazing work here. But that doesn't really tell us who you are. There's no better way to really find out who you are than a friendly round of this or that. Are you familiar with this or that?
I know you can get with this or you can get with that. So let's see what happens.
And hey, look, this has never, ever happened before, but I have curated, with the help of AI, a special edition, the hip hop edition, just for you.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it. So this is not meant to try to trick you up or anything. I'm going to give you a couple of options, and then you will, just go with what comes to your mind first. And this gives us, the audience, a real glimpse of who you are, aside from being the CEO and founder of this phenomenal organization. Okay?
All right.
All right. So, East Coast or West Coast hip hop?
Oh, East Coast all day.
Yeah, you from Baltimore. It's Baltimore.
I'm from Philly.
Philly. I'm sorry.
I reside in Baltimore.
There's so much relation. Philly and Chicago seem so similar. I love it. Okay, that's not what's supposed to happen. I'm supposed to be doing this or that, but okay. Notorious B.I.G. or Tupac?
Oh, man. So there's lyricism. See, now I got to get all deep with it.
You're supposed to be just this or that. This is the whole thing.
I can't. When it comes to knowledge of self and having those conversations and getting people to think, I got to go with Tupac Amaru Shakur all day. When it comes to just being in the party, not saying big thing make you think, but Big was really on some, talk about my life, but also we gonna party. We gonna be at the bar.
Party and bush
Yeah,
and
we're gonna be at the
party.
barbecue. So for basing it off of consciousness and having conversations, pre Suge Knight, Tupac, then I gotta go with Tupac.
Okay. All right. Tupac is. Well, you said both. You didn't. Hey, audience, I can't make this stuff up. She not playing by the rules, y'all. It's supposed to be this and that. She didn't gave us both. And I had a couple of people that came on here and tried to play the fence. We not having it. This is my show. You and my.
I justified it.
Go by the rules. This or that. Tupac or Biggie. Which one first? Which one you playing first?
I'm playing Biggie.
All right, there we go. There we go. All right. Let's keep going. Let's keep this thing going. Jay-Z and Nas.
I gotta go with Jay.
Kanye or Drake?
Kanye.
Well, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that for my good buddy. Ye or Drake?
Yay.
Old school, like 80s and 90s, or new school, 2000 to present hip hop?
Oh, definitely 80s and 90s, old school.
All right. Beats or lyrics?
I gotta go with lyrics. I think very deeply.
Okay. Boom bap or trap?
Boom bap, original rap.
How about hip hop clubs or concerts?
I like a good small hip hop club.
Okay. All right. We're digging in a little bit.
But the concerts could be at the club.
Yeah,
right?
but we're talking about the hip hop clubs, no concert. The club, the DJ, the party, and the dancing versus a concert, the performance.
All right, let me retract my this or that. I got concerts then.
Concerts. Mixtapes or studio albums?
Sheesh.
Today, huh?
Yeah, you got me on that one. Because there's been phenomenal versions of both. But the mixtape, that's the grassroots. I kind of gotta go with mixtape.
Okay. So you liking this flow, I see. Okay. PE, Public Enemy, or NWA?
PE.
Okay. All right. Graffiti art or breakdancing? See you as a pop locker.
I do like a good pop lock. Yeah, I gotta go with breaking.
Okay, all right.
But I love visual arts.
I know, right?
It can't both.
Oh, you trying to do it just for you, Jamila. Don't, hey, all you future guests, don't get no ideas here now. Vinyl or streaming music?
I gotta go with vinyl.
You know, I'm gonna jump in here. I'm gonna go with the streaming. I could just get more music in. It's vinyl. Vinyl is good aesthetically. It's vinyl. But streaming, I mean, I literally have thousands and thousands of songs on my phone thanks to streaming services, so I can access whatever. But if I had the time and the acoustics, because you gotta have the right acoustics for vinyl. You can't be playing it on Bluetooth speakers.
No.
So I'm going streaming.
Yeah. Well, vinyl for me, my father, that's how we communicated. He would come home from work and he would play me records from back in the day. So he has a massive record collection.
Okay, all right. Hold on. This is getting good.
Part. I'm just giving some context to my answer, Professor Stu.
Yeah, I know you ain't surface. I know you are not a surface woman. I understand. We're gonna get to some of that depth. All right. Talk or listen?
Listen.
Write, paper and pen, or type?
Right.
Teachers or parents?
Parents are your first teachers. So I gotta go parents.
Great job. Congratulations, Jamila. You completed this or that.
Hey.
Thank you for being such an amazing sport. Love it, love it, love it. Great job. So tell us, Jamila Sams, 6th grade. Who were you? What were you doing? What were you on? What kind of grades did you get?
6th grade. That's a good question. I always got better than C because I didn't have a choice. C's were not an option in my household. You know, I got a few, and then it was just like, all right, so you need a tutor. Like, we got to get rid of this right now.
It was on it like that, huh?
Yeah, we'll play the C game. So, you know, I was getting relatively good grades. Probably just trying to figure out who I was. And right outside of West Philadelphia is where I went to school for 6th grade. And I was nervous about going to middle school. So because of how our school district was set up, elementary went to 6, where so many schools now it stops at 5th, but we went all the way to 6, and then you had quote unquote middle school starting from 7 to 9. So I was a little nervous about it because we were kind of insulated in our little 6th grade class, and I had, you know, grew to, you know, just become friends with all the people there, but it was a feeder school. So it's not like I wasn't going to be with them anymore, but it was going to be so many more kids that I was going to have to interact with in middle school. So I think just trying to figure out who I was and how I was going to show up. Because my parents moved from West Philadelphia, Lansdowne Avenue to Lansdowne, which was the suburb of West Philly. And so, you know, that's just that duality of being from Philly, but now being in a suburb and just trying to figure out, well, who am I? Now that I've had exposure to both sides. And then how am I going to show up in middle school? So I feel like that's probably where I was around that time.
You know, in Chicago, our neighborhoods are very segregated by ethnicity. For the most part in Chicago, if you live in a Black neighborhood or wherever neighborhood you live, it's your people. So for a good portion of my youth, all of my youth in high school, primarily I was around Black African-American people that look like me. But my elementary school, which was in the middle heart of one of the most notorious neighborhoods in Chicago, the Roseland community, was ran by a bunch of Presbyterians. And those were really the only white people that I interacted with or saw. And they even brought their children attended the school as well. Was it like that for you in West Philly, or were you always exposed to other cultures and races of people? What was that for you?
I didn't see anybody but Black people in West Philly. I went to a Black Christian school up until the 2nd grade. I'm sorry, up until the 2nd grade. I went to Black Christian schools, and all of my friends, my neighborhood, I really did not interact with anybody outside of the people that, you know, I met in West Philly, and then my parents' friends which were predominantly Black at the time. And so to move from West Philly to Lansdowne, it was a huge cultural shock for me. And I felt very alone. I couldn't just go to the corner store, get some water ice and a pretzel anymore. I went to Wawa. So like even my stores shifted. And it was just different. And where we lived in Lansdowne was predominantly white. And most of my Black friends lived in the neighboring suburbs of Yeadon and Darby, which is in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, right outside of West Philly. So even though I would see them in school, I would come home and not have any friends to hang out with. And I wasn't used to that because when I was in West Philly, you just walk down the street to your friend's house or next door. And that wasn't the case anymore. So it was a cultural shock for me. I didn't like it.
So when were you the only child? Like when did you start realizing that you wanted to get into education? Well, did you have people in your family who were educators? Like where did you see that? Like where'd you go to college? Like what was you 6th grade, high school? When did you decide I want to be in education?
So that's the real conversation right there. 12th grade. I've always been an empath. Like I always wanted to help people. I always knew that whatever I did was going to help people, but I was also a creative. I used to draw. I used to want to be a fashion designer. And I really wanted to get into marketing after I watched Boomerang, that movie, and the whole advertising industry. I was like, I want to do that. But I didn't have anybody that did that. So I didn't know what pathway to take. And so my path road into education was literally by spirit. Like spirit drove me. I was in a situation, my parents were in the middle of getting a divorce when I was in 12th grade. And so at that time, it was during the, mid-90s. And there was this persona of guys who had money and, whether it was neighborhood, drug dealers or it was glorified during that time. And I kind of, because of what was happening at home, I kind of got close to that. And there was this guy that was doing some seedy stuff, I'll say that, in an area right outside of my neighborhood. And he had 2 nephews, and those 2 nephews were from North Carolina. And I don't know their story. I don't know the nephew's story, but they were only like maybe 2 or 3 years old at the time that I would go over there and hang out with them because I just didn't want to go home. So when I went over there, they would actually call them Poe N-words, right? That's what they would call them. And it would bother me because I'd never been around an environment where you called children that. And so I used to take it upon myself when I would go over there, it would be less about hanging out with the guy and whatever they had going on. And to protect these babies, I would bring them in a room with me. And my house used to be up the street from Kmart. So I would buy these workbooks where you can learn your ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. And whenever I went over there, instead of hanging out with what they were doing, I would have the kids in a room with me, literally teaching them their names so they would not respond to someone calling them Poe N-words, and just trying to teach them something because they weren't going to school. And so when I clearly, once my dad got wind of that relationship, that was ding ding. So so that was over, thank God, my dad intervened. But then I went to Lincoln University, and I went in there with the intention of becoming a marketing major because, again, I'm looking at Boomerang. I'm like, I want to do that. Yeah. Lincoln, barely had a marketing program, but I found out the hard way. So I went there and, found out what the courses were for marketing. A lot of math courses. I'm like, they didn't do any math on Boomerang. And so I was like, I want to. You
remember, right? They didn't talk.
Yeah, I was like,
they did it, right.
They were coming up with jingles and, creating artwork, blue people. Yeah. So they didn't have that. But again, nobody was because I was the first person to go to college in my family on both sides. So I didn't have anybody to direct me in on the pathway towards that type of career. So now that I'm an adult, I know that was what I actually was looking at, was either graphic design or like being a creative director, right? So once I found out the course load, and I was like, yeah, nah, calculus, oh, hell no, I'm not, this is not the route for me. Because math and I have a very fickle relationship. So I actually switched over to being an education major. And that's kind of, I was like, this felt good to me. I enjoyed the time I spent with those babies, thinking about that past experience that I had. And I liked the feeling that I got from it. And I just knew that children should not be growing up in environments where they're not being educated well or supported or loved or cared for. And so that's why I switched my major to education. So that is kind of how it started. And I had some phenomenal professors at Lincoln University. Shout out to Dr. Thomas, who just became an ancestor. But they really helped to shape my pathway in education.
Absolutely phenomenal. And in the pregame, we talked about, I knew that you were not a surface girl. I knew there was some depth to you. So to hear a couple of things that you dropped some jewels that probably need to come out in some subsequent episodes or topics about you just didn't want to be at the crib because of what was happening, at the crib. And then you found another outlet because of being an empath and how that resonated with you and moved you in such a way to even go to Kmart. And yeah, later you ain't even supposed to be with you no way. You just a placeholder, it seemed like, in a sense. So let me go ahead and utilize my gifts and talents and pour into. And so that's how I hear what you just said. And then now you're here sharing your gifts and talents with the world. That's why this is Dope People and the Dope People podcast, because this is not just cute. We talk to dope people. No, dope is taking on a new definition of depth. So thanks for uncovering that. So when did you fall in love with hip hop?
Through the What's Happening Now shop on 48th and Spruce Street. So that was my father's. So my father was an entrepreneur. He was a hustler. They say, as Jay would say, he could sell water to a whale. And so he had a store in West Philly called the What's Happening Now shop. And it's there where I discovered hip hop, because he would play, Jam on It. That was his favorite song. So he always played Jam on It. He would have a DJ. He understood how to move the crowd, like Rakim would say, right? So he had the DJ. He knew to draw the young people in. He was right behind West Philly High. So you talk about having, customers, right? All of West Philly High would just come there to, to get their candy, to get their ices, to get, whatever, shoestrings. So he also sold a lot of the wares that we had during the 80s, spike bracelets, fat laces, all that. So they would come, that was the spot. So you would come there for your candy, everything that you needed, but he would always be playing hip hop because he knew that would draw the young people in. And so I was just surrounded by it. And then, my dad's side is from Harlem. So whenever I would go up to Harlem, I would hear it all in the buildings, on the streets. And it just became a part of who I was at the time, or who I am today. And so it's always been around. So that's probably where I fell in love with it. And it's just gotten stronger ever since.
Tell us a little bit about We Do It for the Culture. What's that all about?
It's a reflection of just how I like to operate, how I like to leverage the culture. So it's a culturally responsive social emotional learning curriculum rooted in hip hop culture for grades 6 through 12. So that's the byline. But ultimately it's about leveraging the power of hip hop culture to tell stories. And I think, when we think about hip hop and our relationship to it, whether it's questions like, when did you first fall in love with it, or this and that, or anything that gets you to think about the culture, you are connected to it in a way that is, for me, transformative. And so we ask questions when we do these workshops called Hip Hop is SEL, like what hip hop song will be the featured track of your life and why? Because hip hop is supposed to make you think. It was designed to educate and elevate. And so it should spark some type of emotional response, whether it's fight the power, you're talking about resistance, or you're talking about I need love, you're talking about love and relationships. There's so many tracks that should spark a level of emotional connection when you hear it. And so that's what we try to do with education. Social emotional learning is about naming, leveraging your emotions, managing your emotions, and leveraging your emotions for positive change, not just within yourself, but also those around you. And so hip hop, that's what it's always done. Its inception was all about, lifting up the voices of those that have been marginalized or that, society has tried to oppress. So the same thing applies now. Like, our young people have a lot to say, but they want to say it in a context that feels natural and organic to them. And that's where hip hop culture comes into play. And so we just try to leverage that in the lessons that we create for We Do It for the Culture.
I have a couple of questions that I didn't anticipate. I want to throw a couple of things that are kind of popular out there. I saw a video clip on Instagram of Eric's sermon, but he was talking that today's generation of hip hop should not be called hip hop. He should call it something else, live or something. And then Andre 3000 releases an album it's a hip hop album to me. I love it for what it has done for hip hop, but there are plenty of people who just by surprise, like, what in the world? So what do you hope for by bringing hip hop, today's culture? What do you expect or hope to gain from attempting to bridge these multi-generations of hip hop in today's educational environment?
The intention is to get young people to think, and for them to really understand what the culture is about. So I don't know if I would go as far as to just rename it, but I'm kind of with what Eric had to say, because ultimately there's hip hop culture and then there's the rap industry.
If you could say, to my point is, like, if Andre 3000 can do what he just did, and some of us, now I don't know if everybody does, still considers it hip hop. I do. I think it's hip hop because he did it. And anything he does is hip hop. If he opened a hospital, it's a hip hop hospital. If he opened a bank, it's because it's him. But not extend that same the same appreciation for this generation that we want to rename it. That ain't hip hop. Those are babies. They hip hop. If it came through us, it's hip hop. So how do you? That's what I'm saying.
All right. So there's several layers to that. First and foremost, I look at hip hop culture as a vehicle for healing. What Andre 3000 has done with his new album is healing work. When I played that the other day, I was stuck in traffic in Philly. I was mad as hell. I was cursing. And I had just prayed before I got in the car to go to this conference. But I was so mad because I thought I was going to miss my boy, Dr. Chris Emden, speaking. And I'm like, man, this traffic's driving me crazy. I'm flipping out. And I was like, let me put on some flutes. And I played, let me check this album out. So I played Andre's latest project, and I swear to you, I instantly calmed down. For me, hip hop is about healing. And so I don't lump everybody into this generation. I don't lump everybody together, right? Because for me, the Joey Badasses, the Cordays, the Costa Contras of the world, they are healing. A lot of their the work that they're putting out is educating, it's healing. You can vibe to it, you can understand it. It's going to cause you to think, right? The Rhapsodies of the world, Moo Freshes of the world, they are going to cause you to think. That's healing for me. They can be in the hip hop category for me. If you are promoting destruction, if you are promoting violence, if you are promoting misogynistic view, like all of those things that and I'm not saying we didn't have those things in our era too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we didn't.
I was thinking, I'm
Yeah,
glad
yeah,
you brought
yeah,
it
yeah.
up.
No, we weren't
Too
pure.
short is hip hop. Too short is hip hop. NWA is hip hop. You know.
Right. Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm not saying that, but I feel like there was more of a conscious effort to have options when we were growing up. There was more conscious effort to have options. You could listen to Too Short and then turn around and listen to Chuck D, right? There were options. And there's not to say there's not options now, but the commercialization of it is so saturated now with social media and instant gratification that young people aren't taking the time to even explore what else is out there. So it's whatever's hot, it's just hot. Like there isn't a balance. There isn't as much of a balance as it was when we were growing up. And then there's just a maturation process, right? Like as you mature, you start to realize, what I'm putting out there isn't really elevating and educating. And so I feel like we're in this space where, for those that want to just lump it all together, we could do that. I mean, it's just semantics, right? We can lump it all together, but you should be able to talk about the harmful impact of capitalism in hip hop culture. You should be able to talk about that and extract those messages and talk about those things. So if you are going to listen to trap music, you understand what the trap really means and how the trap is symbolic for just the lack of intelligence and awareness that that we as a people are starting to have when we're not educating ourselves. So yeah, that's what I would say. Like, so it's such a and I'm glad this conversation is starting to happen more and more, right? Whether it's Eric Sermon talking about it, DMC talking about it, D1 and calling out Rick Ross and Mill. Like, so I'm so happy that this is where we are. I'm so happy, Styles P has, mad juice bars. Like I'm so happy that this is where we are in the culture. We're starting to ask questions again. I think we went through a phase where no one just asked questions. We all just kind of went with the flow, and whatever was hot was hot. And it's like, nah, let's start to ask critical thinking questions again. Let's start to push those buttons and challenge each other again, and just have a balanced approach. I mean, I think there's always going to be trash out there, but you should be able to have enough discernment to separate the trash from the treasure. So that's where I'm hoping that education plays a role in that.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal answer. Thank you for that. So let me ask the 3 essential questions before we wrap today's episode. What's working for you in education today? Like, what gets you excited? Like, what's like turning you on about education today?
I think so many great things happening right now, but I think this awakening, these movements, we're starting to remember that we cannot liberate ourselves by aligning ourselves with the same oppressive systems that enslaved us in the first place in America, right? I feel like there's a movement right now happening where we're starting to say enough is enough, and we need to take matters into our own hands, start in our own schools, our own educational companies like my own, like the work that you're doing in STEM. I think we're starting to say enough is enough, and we're starting to rely on ourselves in order to make change. I feel like that's the only, and that's saying we didn't do it before, but I feel like, again, that wave is coming back around, and we're starting to do it even more now. And we're starting to have, again, those critical thinking conversations in different spaces. I think about the work that my brother Sharif El-Mekki is doing in terms of increasing the number of Black teachers in schools. Like those type of liberators are really just doing some really powerful work. And it's spreading, the message is spreading. And, it's work that we're doing for ourselves and not always like relying on others to help us get the job done. So I'm really excited about that space right now.
That's super dope.
Yeah, and I would say I'm also excited about technology. I'm really excited about what AI could be for our communities. I'm excited about the creativity that's happening in schools. I'm excited about young people's just verve and curiosity levels increasing, and young people starting to become entrepreneurs because of what they have access to in terms of social media and online, and just all these spaces now where they can see, oh, I could be an entrepreneur at 10, so I'm excited about that as well. People are starting to, I hope, realize that education is not about fueling the industrial system anymore. Like, it's about being innovative. It's about thinking outside the box, because we got to get ready for the new wave that's here and the waves that are coming with technology, financial markets, and things of that nature.
Wow, very interesting. That's dope. So, well, I gotta ask, well, what's challenging you the most about education today? What frustrates you?
That probably 10 to 15% that I just talked about has to try to convince the other 85 to 90% to get on board and wake up. And we have to, start to have some radical shifts. Doing the same thing over and over again is the definition and getting the same results is definition of insanity. And what's frustrating me is that we're, again, in the current school system that we have, we're really not thinking ahead. So we're just kind of doing the same things to get the same results, and our babies are not going to be prepared. So that's what's disheartening. But I'm hoping that, again, that 10 to 15% can make enough noise to impact the 85 to 90%.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, if you had it to do your way, and I know you have, we do it for the culture, and maybe this is just not even a shameless plug right now. How would you do it? How would you do education? What is education supposed to look like? If you had it, if you were at the helm, Secretary of Education, United States of America, or the superintendent at whatever district, you're in whatever. How would it look?
Well, first and foremost, it wouldn't be funded by local taxes, and it would not be deemed on how much a certain zip code makes, right? I feel like that needs to be shaken up in this country. I can't think of any politician that ran on that platform and then maybe there was, and I just don't know who it is, but the platform that education should not be run with or determined by local tax dollars. Two, I would love to see it be more experiential. I feel like that's just how we learn best as human beings. We learn through experience. And so to take it back to like me seeing Boomerang, like had I been in a situation where I could have been nurtured in that creative space, then I'm happy where I am right now. But I feel like I could have been doing something else. But I think it's important for us to stop holding young people back from freedom dreaming. Have them really think big. If a student wants to do something, I want to be a rocket scientist, let's figure out how you need to become a rocket scientist and let's show you the pathway to get there. I think it should be, education and learning should be somewhat individualized, and students should have options to pursue opportunities based on what brings them joy, what brings them, excitement. And so there are schools out there that are competency based. So you focus on like a certain pathway that you want to pursue. And I think there needs to be more of that so that students can feel like what they're doing has a sense of purpose, and they don't have to wait to the quote unquote adults to figure that out. If they have that inkling while they were younger, they're in an environment where that's being cultivated. And so that's what I hope for schools, that, and there are models out there like the Met School, and so there are models out there that exist, but that they shouldn't be the minority. We should definitely create more of those type of learning environments.
Super dope, super dope. So look, we're wrapping up, man. This has been an amazing, exciting conversation, to say the least. But if school leaders want to get in contact with you, where can they reach you, and what kind of transformation might they expect as a result of having We Do It for the Culture in the building?
Yeah, we could be reached at We Do It, the number 4, theculture.com. And I'm hoping we could just have real authentic conversations. What We Do It for the Culture has done has been able to create safe and brave spaces for young people to have what we like to call real talk in schools. And as a result of that, adults are being transformed. They're learning more about their students from doing some of these lessons that they had known about them before. So it requires you to go deep. And so that's what I'm really proud of, that is starting to spark really important critical thinking conversations in schools.
I want to thank you for dropping by today. My kids have been listening. They are so excited to hear everything that you've been talking about. I want to thank all of our listeners. I want to thank everybody for stopping by today and checking us out. This has been an amazing conversation with the one, the only Miss Jamila Sams. We will drop all of her contact in our show notes. And if you want to get in contact with her, you should. But for now, you already know what it is. We'll catch up with you next time. All right? Peace.
Peace. Thank you.
Thank you.